Hi, friend. Welcome to day 2 of our study in Exodus. Today it gets good. Yesterday we were left with this question. When things don't make sense, can we trust God? It's as if Moses presents this question. Look, when we are sojourning, when we are foreigners in a foreign land, can we trust God? Can we trust in His promises? And I love today because we see, yes, God is the hero of the story. He is allowing His people to multiply and to expand and to become powerful in a beautiful way. So we see, we can, I didn't talk about this yesterday, but I did in the introduction. In studying Old Testament narrative, we have, at least I've narrowed it down. There's really more, but 3 simple rules. Number 1, God is always the hero. Number 2, read literally. And number 3, look for the spiritual lesson. So in the midst of asking those detective questions, that's kind of our goal. We want to understand, what does this passage have to say about who God is? And then a lot of times as we're reading literally, we will find spiritual lessons from some of the people that we see in the story. We can learn what not to do, which we do with Pharaoh, and we can learn what to do, which we learned today from the 2 midwives. So, all right, I've set this up. Let's go ahead and walk through some of the things that I observed today and seek to interpret those to understand what is it that Moses is saying as he writes this, and then we will apply it, okay? I began once again by asking those detective questions, and I asked who several times today, who and what. So right off the bat, we see the people of Israel. And we notice, this begins, verse 7 begins with the word but. And sometimes these conjunctions are important. Sometimes that word but can really point us into the direction, can actually just point us to God and His good work. And that's what we see. Yesterday, I've already talked about, we saw that the people of Israel, they're in Egypt. That doesn't make sense. That is not what God had promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so what in the world are they doing in Egypt? Can we trust God and His word? And we did note that Genesis ended with, this is towards the end of Genesis 46:3. Then God said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you into a great nation. That was a promise that God had made to Abraham. That promise carried down to Isaac, and then it went forward to Jacob. So this is God speaking to Jacob, saying, look, it's okay for you to leave Canaan, go down to Egypt. It is there. I am going to make you into a great nation. So when we flip the page today, we see, voila, God is at work. He is at work. He is faithful to His promise. We can trust His word. And I love, there's a good number of synonyms here, right? In just verse 7 alone. Look, the people of Israel, they were fruitful. They increased greatly. They multiplied. They grew exceedingly strong, and the land was filled with them. And we see that theme carried out through today's passage, such that was my main point for today. In the midst of being in Egypt, in the midst of oppression, God blesses the people of Israel. He blesses His people such that they multiply and they grow strong. All right. This is it. Yeah. All right. So I have answered my what. The people of Israel are growing fruitful. They're growing exceedingly strong. Where are they? They are still in Egypt. when? Well, we see today that they are there. This is now the time of when a new king arises and is established on the throne in Egypt. So here's a whole new regime. They have no clue about Joseph. A good period of time has passed by. So they have no clue as to who Joseph was, and really have no clue as to where these Israelites came from. But we can know this. They are afraid. They are afraid of the Israelites, and they oppress them. Why? Because one, the Israelites are too many. That's what Pharaoh says here in verse 9. The people of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. Do you feel the fear, the sense of fear that Pharaoh has concerning the Israelites? And he goes on to say, look, come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply. And if war breaks out, they join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land. All right, so then Pharaoh comes up with, in this first paragraph, or verses 8 through 14, I call this Pharaoh's plan A. That's how I labeled it today. Here's Pharaoh's plan A. He fears the Israelites, and so he is going to oppress them, right? How does he do that? He makes them slaves. He oppresses them through slavery, and he afflicts them with heavy burdens. And I just noticed here, friends, I observed sometimes we have heard that the Bible condones slavery. It absolutely does not condone slavery here, does it? No. This is pointing out that the people of Israel, they are oppressed, they are afflicted, they are burdened. A lot of words are used in this paragraph. Afflict, heavy burdens, oppressed, ruthless. The Egyptians ruthlessly make the people of Israel work as slaves. That phrase, work as slaves, is repeated. This is bitter. The Israelites' lives are bitter. There's hard service. And again, the Egyptians are absolutely ruthless. So in no way does this condone slavery. What stood out to me in this paragraph is verse 12. Friends, we have to observe verse 12. But the more the Israelites were oppressed, the more they multiplied, and the more they spread abroad. That's what I put. Observe verse 12. And I ask this question, how can this be? How is it that they continue to multiply in the midst of being so oppressed, in the midst of being enslaved, in the midst of being afflicted? These circumstances don't make sense. These circumstances absolutely do not make sense. They wouldn't have made sense to the Israelites. But what do we see? What is it we learn about who God is? God sees, and God is with them. And God is faithful to his word and to his promises, right? He has answered the very first promise that he made to Israel, that he would Israel to Abraham, and I guess to Israel. It went from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob, whose name was Israel. God has made the people of Israel into a great nation, such that here they are living in Egypt. They're not in their homeland. They're not in the promised land, but the people of Israel, or the people of Egypt, dread them. Did you see that in verse 12? And the Egyptians were in dread of the people of Israel. And that means to be extremely afraid, to be scared of. All right? So very, Very interesting. What is it we learn about who God is, friends? God is faithful to his promises. Can we trust in his word? Can we trust in his promises? Yes, yes, yes. And I think Moses is just making that abundantly clear here for his ancient Near East audience, the Israelites, right? He wants them to know, look, God is with you, and he is answering his promises. All right, so Pharaoh's plan A did not work, right? The Israelites are continuing to grow strong. They're continuing to multiply. They're spreading out amongst the land. So Pharaoh goes to plan B. That's how I labeled this next paragraph, starting at verse 15. And I just had to ask, what in the world was he thinking? He commands these midwives, these Hebrew midwives, the midwives, these two lead midwives over the Israelites to begin killing the male children. Like, what was he thinking? What was he thinking? So this is the command. This is his next way of trying to contain the growth of the Israelites. But he's going up against God here, isn't he? And he's going up against these Hebrew midwives. So I asked who many times, and we see the people of Israel, we see Pharaoh. We must think about who Pharaoh is. And I'm not going to go into detail in the role of Pharaoh today, but I just noted, what can I learn from him from this passage? He is ruthless. He afflicts, he enslaves, he murders. That's his heart. That's the state of the heart of Pharaoh here. He is ruthless. He is an enslaver. He is a murderer. And this is how he leads the Egyptians as well. We might just add there, he's fearful. He's afraid. He's acting out in this way because of great fear. But the next two are these Hebrew midwives. And what do we learn about them, friends? Well, number one, they are named. They are named. I mean, that is a big deal for Moses to name these two women. This is a patriarchal society, and Moses names these two women. He doesn't even give us Pharaoh's name, right? There's a lot of names missing in this passage. So why are they named? Well, Pharaoh highlights them. God highlights them here. Why? I think, friends, because of their beautiful and brave example of fearing God. Fearing God. That was another word I put in my keyword column. Here, to fear God means to reverence God, to respect him, to exalt him, just to absolutely be in awe of God. And there were several cross references. I jotted down this one, Proverbs 16:6. By steadfast love and faithfulness, iniquity is atoned for, and by the fear of the Lord, one turns away from evil. By the fear of the Lord, one turns away from evil. That pegs these two Hebrew midwives. I should say their names. Like if Moses speaks their names, I should too. Shiphrah and Puah. Beautiful, beautiful, brave examples of fearing God and not fearing man. All right. And, I think practically speaking, we might want to ask, does their actions just give us a right to disobey authorities? Friends, we got to note the context here. We can't just start disobeying our authority. The context here is grave. They have been commanded to murder. They themselves have been commanded to murder. but they are in awe of God. They reverence God and his ways. God is a God of life. And so they disobey. This is the reason for their disobedience. Moses is not promoting anarchy here. Moses is promoting a reverence for the Lord and his ways. He's highlighting what it looks like to have a fear of the Lord. And one other question that we might ask is, do they lie? Do these two women lie to Pharaoh when he calls them back? Now, a lot of time has probably surpassed for Pharaoh to be aware that, wow, there's a lot of Hebrew little boys around. Now, how and why could that be? Friends, I think, just think about, little boys and little girls don't look that much different as babies, do they? So yeah, we can just stop and think about that. But do they lie to Pharaoh? I don't think it's necessarily that they lie to Pharaoh. Look at what the midwives say to Pharaoh. Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are vigorous and give birth before the midwife comes to them. This word vigorous, I looked that up. It means characterized by forceful and energetic action or activity. There's activity involved. There's energy involved. I just wonder if there's kind of this call for all hands to be on deck. This isn't just about midwives delivering babies. Can't you imagine that behind the scenes, midwives are training? They are training women how to have their babies. They are training family members to take part such that these babies could be born before the midwives even arrive. And then, oops, the midwife arrives, the babies are there. I don't think it's necessary that they were lying. There's just a lot of energetic activity going on such that what happens? What do we see? Verse 20. So God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and grew very strong. Do you see that theme? I mean, clearly that's the main point for today, such that Pharaoh has to go to plan C, and he commands all his people, every son that is born to the Hebrews, you shall cast into the Nile, but you shall let every daughter live. And we will pick up on that tomorrow. Friends, how do we apply this? What is the spiritual lesson here? Wow, I see God multiplying. I see that it is God who multiplies. It is God who makes strong. And when circumstances don't make sense, can we trust him? The answer is clearly yes, yes, yes. Trust God no matter the circumstances we are facing today.